Officer at I Follow the Leader, and we are here for episode 58 of Conversations with I Follow the Leader, integrating strategy and culture with Trina McCarroll. I am so excited because Trina and I have a lot in common around valuing strategy, culture, but also courage. And so I am so excited for you to meet her and hear more about the wonderful work that she is doing in Canada and beyond. And so you are going to hear from her. She is an executive advisor and the founder of Hello Courage. Trina, welcome, welcome. Thanks so much
Hi.
for being here.
Good morning. Thanks so much for having me today.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited because we've been able to connect virtually and have been cheering each other on. And so to have you on today is just really a treat. For those who may not know what we are discussing today, I will read just a quick intro about what this episode is going to be about. So we're going to discuss culture building and why does it often take a backseat in strategic planning and the ramifications of that oversight if that's something that's happened to you. And Trina has a really unique perspective on common challenges and she's going to share some success stories. So she's going to tell us why do we need to integrate strategy and culture, and we'll talk about why is this still unique? Why are people still not doing this? And I love that Trina is. And then Trina's going to elaborate on the significance of courageous leadership and the need for a holistic, human centered approach in shaping organizational success. And I am excited. So, Trina, if you can just tell us a little bit more about you and the work that you're currently doing with Hello Courage.
Yeah, certainly. Certainly. Thanks so much. Super fun intro and really looking forward to our conversation today. And I've been a longtime fan of your work and your courage work and strategy, as well as the DEI focus. And so just delighted to be here. So thanks for having me. So, yeah, as you mentioned, I'm the founder of Hello Courage, and I do consulting and facilitation for executive teams and boards for organizations in about mid to large organizations across Western Canada. And we mentioned that maybe one day, though, we'll share a stage together
Yes.
talking all about courage too, because really it takes so much courage for executives to really lead in a human-centered way and to tackle strategy and culture. All executives know that strategy and culture are their top responsibilities and really the areas that they want to focus on the most, setting the vision, setting the direction for the organization. So they often call me in when they need help with those two areas, both strategy and culture. And so on the strategy side, I really help organizations set clear goals, really focus where should they put their resources, their time and attention. Everyone knows resources are scarce. You have to decide intentionally where to focus. And then on the culture side, really it's about making intentional choices about building your culture. That the way we do things around here is how a lot of people describe culture. You know, you walk into a workplace, you start to get a vibe, a personality, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And so all of that culture can really be intentionally built with time and attention. And so I really support executive teams to bring those two areas together, strategy and culture, because that's how you have the biggest success in the market that you're trying to impact.
Thank you. And for those who are watching, and if you're new to the podcast, I'm looking down because I'm always taking notes because I'm always learning as well. And something I just highlighted is intentionally built. And so I think that's something often culture will, right? Culture is always going to have a personality, whether you're intentional about it or not. And so
Yeah.
I love that intentionally built piece because
Mhm.
if you don't intentionally build it, right, you're still going to have a culture personality, but usually that is not a good thing.
Yes, exactly, exactly. And I think it can really happen by accident or it can happen by design. Yeah.
I love that. Yes, accident or design. And I know people often bring you in to the work when, unfortunately, the culture was built by accident instead of design to have you help. And so, if you can share, what are the typical types of organizations that you're providing support to right now?
Yeah, yes, yeah, exactly. So I am based near Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. As we mentioned, we were comparing the weather earlier,
Yes.
and it's beautiful right now, and beautiful right now, and the winters are just fine. And so most of my focus is on mid to large size organizations across Western Canada, and my biggest clients are really collaborative leaders who really recognize that they want to do business in a new way, that really they want to get big results, they want to have big success, and have a really human-based approach to their work for their teams to thrive. So those are most often the type of leaders that really resonate with the new era of integrating strategy and culture and human-based leadership. So they often give me a call.
Yeah, I think that's great. And this has been a theme lately of how do we do things better, and how do we center, right, the people in the work. And I think
Yes.
just all of us going through a global pandemic and just the aftermath of that. I saw recently the CDC and other people, right, are saying loneliness is an epidemic now, and people just not feeling connected. And so I think it's so critical, the work that you're doing, right? People more than ever before want to feel a sense of belonging and psychological safety at work, right?
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. We spend so much of our time at work, and our closest relationships can often be at work. And really, all of the research shows about the impact of our boss and of our coworkers on our mental health, on our overall well-being. And so, so many leaders want to be a positive, really, impactful leader, but they often need some support and some expertise and some time, to be honest, to have some experts brought in to really help design and help facilitate all of the conditions for people to thrive. And so it's really encouraging to see the increase in that type of leadership. I call it courageous leadership, along with our love of courage, and human-centered leadership is another title for it lately. That's really wanting to have big impact in a human-centered way. And that's also another, a lot of my clients have said that I have two nicknames that I've heard of, Brene Brown of Canada, which I will lovingly take. I'll
Yes.
lovingly take that nickname. And then also really the component of humanizing strategy. That strategy really, there's a lot of analytics involved in strategy,
Yes.
marketplace, trends, you're looking at financials, you're looking at, customer service satisfaction, all sorts of data. And you want the data and the emotions and the culture of your organization to be included in that strategy development and strategy execution. And so really known for the, humanizing strategy, because it's people that are going to be delivering it. So let's involve
Yes.
people in the design and in the implementation as well.
That's beautiful. And I think it's so important. Something we talk about is how do we make sure people are celebrated versus tolerated in the workplace, and receiving, right, that extra care and attention, which often is individualized, right? It really
Yeah.
depends on the leaders to be, and I so agree, right? That courageous leadership of actually taking the time to do some of this background work that it may, right, it's going to seem like, oh, it's taking away from the work, but of course we know it just adds and multiplies the success. So if
Yes.
you
Yeah.
can share, just from your opinion, why do you think integrating strategy and culture, how does culture often become this afterthought, this back burner, we'll get to it next month, which becomes next year thing.
Yes, certainly. So sometimes strategic planning gets a bit more attention, often gets more attention. It's often linked to the budget cycle where you're setting your budget for the following year. You need to have your priorities. The board and the executive team knows that they need a strategy and a strategic plan, perhaps. So there's a bit of a natural cycle to the fiscal year that requires strategic planning. So lots of focus gets placed there. And then sometimes, that's right, culture really gets relegated. Sometimes it gets delegated to HR, that the executive team thinks, oh, we have a morale problem, HR, can you look into that? And really, it needs to be the whole executive team and the whole leadership team throughout the organization are really in charge of creating the culture and taking the time to do the culture by design. So I think when culture gets either delegated to HR or when it gets, an afterthought. Sometimes it's really common in a lot of, business articles and a lot of books and research about, you set your strategy and then later on you align your culture to the strategy. And I just like, that's fine. And at least culture is being considered, but I just like to bring culture up front with strategy and to really integrate it from the beginning. And so you can really treat culture as one of your competitive advantages, right? You have great talent. They want to stay. They want to do a good job. Almost, 99% of employees and top star talent want to do an exceptional job at work.
Yep.
And so giving them the conditions to be able to do that. So really just integrating strategy and culture, like intertwine from the beginning and treating them step by step in interlock and how they can really strengthen one another. As you do your strategic planning, you can incorporate culture building as part of the process. And it really maximizes both of their benefits. You get stronger profitability, stronger execution and deliverables on your goals, and it's a better place to work when they're really interjoined.
Thank you. That's great. And a question I wrote down that's great for the audience to consider is your culture a competitive advantage?
Yeah.
That is just a great question to ask yourself, to ask your leadership team. And so those who are watching now or later, feel free to just put in the chat where you are tuning in from. It's always great to know where people are from. So whether you're watching on LinkedIn or YouTube or Facebook right now, I see some different people on different platforms on our back end. And so please feel free to let us know where you are watching from. And if you have any questions for Trina, please put them in the chat. If we can't get to them now, right, we'll make sure to tag Trina later and she can answer as she has time. So that is really helpful, and something we see just a lot in our work is regulating it to the back burner or delegating it to HR. I love those things, right? How you regulating it or delegating it. Yeah. And of course, what you talk about is that intertwining. How do you intertwine it instead of having to come on the back end, which, as we know, then employees really don't feel as much a part of it if it isn't done from the start. And if their input isn't gathered from the beginning, you really are then backtracking to get that. So I'd love to know, for those who are doing it right, or even those who realize they need your help later, what are some of those wins or accomplishments that you've seen that others can be encouraged about?
Yeah, certainly. I have the very strong blessing of some amazing clients right now who are wanting to do really good work in this area. And they've had some fantastic success this year. One of my strategic planning clients, really progressive leader who wanted to have collaboration, and they were starting from scratch, didn't have a strategic plan, vision, mission, values, didn't have anything. And so sometimes some executives would, get 5 people in a room and come up with some drafts and, circulate it and then call it good. And that's kind of the way strategy used to be done.
Yep.
And vision, mission, values, that's kind of the old school way. but this leader was really collaborative, and we wanted to build the organizational culture while we did the strategic planning process. And so we did really thorough process, and especially for vision, mission, and values, the foundation of your organization, and really, the heartbeat of why people work there, of what you're trying to accomplish. And so we did some fantastic engagement sessions with staff and industry partners and clients, and we really had meaningful dialogue. It wasn't just take a look over this and it's already done. It was really meaningful dialogue, and we used the words that the staff used and that resonated with their culture, resonated with their group. And so it was just a really meaningful process. And because I have both strategy and culture hats and expertise in my background, I'm also a big believer in metrics and making sure that you're getting the results. And so we did a lot of measurements before and after our planning process, and they had a 48% increase in clear expectations about their culture, the behaviors that they knew that everyone was expected of one another. So they had a 48% increase in clear expectations for behavior, and a 20% increase in sense of belonging, of really wanting to have, that they had a good sense of belonging to begin with, and then they strengthened it even more by 20% throughout the course of we did a 6-month project for that client. So huge success story. The staff were thrilled and really believed in their vision, mission, values, and then the new direction that they're headed. And they were really on board and ready to want to deliver on that. So that was one fantastic example, kind of starting from scratch, and a huge kudos to that client. And then another client that I have had a really ambitious strategic plan, really ambitious, and struggling to deliver on it, so much in it, wanting to do such good change, and weren't quite able to get all of their ambitions actually in momentum. And so they called me, and they knew that they needed to address both their culture and their strategy. So it's just like, hallelujah, let's do both at once. And so we really were able to, they needed some strategic mechanisms, some reporting structures, they needed some clarity, they needed some prioritization, right? We can't do everything all at once. So there's these strategy mechanisms that we can put in place for implementation and achieving our ambitious goals. And we also talked about how can we strengthen the culture? How can we clear roles, clear responsibilities, having hard conversations in a human way, because often that's what takes time and attention away from getting the work done is, we either don't have the conversations or they go really poorly. So having those hard conversations in a really respectful way, we're addressing both components at once and really starting to get some traction and some clarity on implementing their strategic plan, and on really energizing their staff that they're part of it. They're not the recipients of the strategic plan. They're the drivers of the strategic plan in a good way. So those are really two shining client examples right now that have just been so fortunate to work with this year, and they're making such great progress.
That's really beautiful. I love the energizing, right? How do you energize your employees? And yes, by integrating strategy and culture, that's what people want. They want to be a part of things. And even if they come in later, they want to be able to understand the vision and to really feel like this is something we're living out every day, right? It's not just brought up once a year or on my performance review, but I have a really clear idea of what's going on. And so I think that's really great. The strategy portion, right? The measurable portion. And also what we see a lot of people struggle with is that sustainability. And so how do you make sure this document is a living, breathing thing, right? That's the human side versus just this piece of paper that we had to check the box, but this has nothing to do with our day-to-day movement.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, so true.
That's awesome. And I love the drivers, not the recipients, right? So actually giving employees that, again, going back to humanity, giving them the ability to learn, to grow, to lead. And so by allowing them to be the drivers in the driver's seat, they're not just along for the ride. They really are helping to champion the strategy. So I think, yeah, the work you're doing is so necessary, and really kind of pushing back against, some of the traditional ways of doing things, because leadership has changed so much and the faces of leadership, right? And leaders have changed. And so, how do we make sure we have the most generations in the workplace ever, right? Globally, we're more diverse as a society. And so, how do we ensure that everyone feels a part of it? So, I think, yeah, really helpful. I think it's always important to also talk about some of the common pitfalls that people experience when they may be trying to integrate strategy and culture in a new way or for the first time.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. It's no easy task. And as we mentioned before about courageous leadership, that's why I call it this, is it's a tough undertaking. I don't sugarcoat it with my leaders that I work with that this is going to be easy. It is doable and it is learnable for everyone, but it's tough work, and especially that it's a new leadership style. We haven't seen it role modeled that much before, so we're going to make a lot of trial and errors and learn as we go. And so certainly a lot of the things that I really try to warn the leaders that I work with is the degree of change that's required in this approach. It is a big change management undertaking when you're really doing a collaborative, empowering culture. You want to make sure that you're not just tossing the work to the employees and saying, well, you figure it out now. We really have to train up the employees, in, say, if they're being able to be involved in strategy development or in strategy execution. They need training, they need coaching, they need time and support to learn these new skills and to, help sort out the new way that you're going to be having your culture built. And so I just really encourage the leaders that I work with to acknowledge this will take time, this will take training, patience with one another, grace with one another, to be able to learn together, and especially vocalizing that with your employees as you really involve them more and build a culture. Be really upfront. We're learning together. We're gonna, let's be open when we fall down and we help one another back up. So I really just try to magnify that this is a change, and so really support employees through it, and also for the leaders to have compassion for themselves. Maybe this is the first time that they've done a collaborative strategic planning process, or the first time that they're intentionally designing their culture rather than letting it, just build on its own by accident. So grace for themselves as they learn. And then certainly the other, common pitfall, or, the friendly warning that I give them is change management takes time and resources. So it can't be a corner of the desk activity. It really does need some time and attention and resourcing from the executives, from, an outside party like myself, a consultant to support them, or sometimes they have internal staff say in HR or strategy departments. So not delegating it 100%, but you do need to resource the time and attention that it takes to build strategy and to build culture.
Thank you. I love that. I don't know if I've heard it said in that way, but it can't be a corner of the desk activity. I love that thought. Yeah, you can't just have it, right? And I have sticky notes on my desk right now, and so right, it's just giving the attention that it needs is really powerful. And change management, something we were randomly talking about before we came in, was lakes and canoes and kayaking. And so I often, my husband and I will often get on a kayak together, and we'll laugh because sometimes other people can't seem to get that rhythm going together. And it makes me think of just what you said, about change management is you really do have to dedicate the time to get that rhythm to
Yes,
go faster. And so sometimes
exactly.
you have to pause and talk to each other or learn or switch technique.
Yeah.
And you could have just kept rowing, but you're going to be so much slower
Yes.
and so much more exhausted than if you could get on the same page and the same pace. So, yeah, that just our
100%.
conversation before and what you just said for those that like visuals, right?
Yeah.
How do you
Yeah.
get your team all rowing, right? Efficiently and effectively where
Exactly.
people aren't exhausted.
Yeah, exactly. And it takes such courage to take that time out and say,
Yes.
okay, let's get on the same page, because there's always demands each week and each month and the busyness of each day. But taking the courage to pause, whether it's a 2-hour workshop or a 2-day offsite or a series of meetings, it does take that courage to pause and get on the same page. How do we want to interact with one another? How do we want to behave here? What does our strategy need of our culture? And what does our culture benefit our strategy? It takes a lot of courage to take that pause and to get on the same page and then to start that rowing. I love that analogy of getting into the rhythm together and setting those clear expectations. And then you can really gain speed and really be able to, make big impact.
I love that. Yeah, no, thank you.
Yeah.
I think that's so important. And the courage to pause, gosh, like, um, Trina gets my courage candy text, but I just think that's so important, right? I think often we're like, okay, we have to do more and more and better and better. And how can we have the courage to
Yeah.
pause? And I think we often think of it as individuals prioritizing rest,
Right.
but also we have to do this as a team.
Yeah. Exactly, to get on the same page, because often we're just scurrying, doing our own work, and you're, wanting to do exceptional work, and then being able to come together. It is energizing, and that relationship building. And how are we going to do our work together in a way that, best serves the strategy and best serves the culture?
Awesome. Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Well, if anyone has a question currently, you can drop it in the chat. And Tammy said she's watching from Rocky View County. So hello,
Hi,
Tammy.
Tammy.
And she said she
Yeah.
worked with you before, Trina.
Yes.
So
Yes.
always great to
Wonderful
have
client.
clients on. That's
Yes.
great.
Hi, Tammy.
And so, Trina, I'd love to know from you. There's a lot of people who are going to be who are hearing from you for the first time, or maybe thinking about integrating their strategy and culture. And so, if you can share with us just some final thoughts and encouragement around integrating strategy and culture.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I think it's the intentionality. The way that we started off our discussion today is courage, the courage to be intentional about your strategy and about your culture, and that, strategies not more important than culture, and culture's not more important than strategy. The whole, culture eats strategy for breakfast. I think they have to be together. They have to be intertwined. You want to make sure that your place is a great place to work. Top performers want to be there, want to do a fantastic job. And the relationships that are formed there and the work that's delivered is because of your culture. People want to be there. And, making some hard decisions about your strategy, where to put your resources, where to focus your time and attention to make the biggest impact that you're trying to do for your customers, for your employees. And so I think it's just really crucial that both are top of mind for executives, and having the intentionality behind it and the courageous approach to have a human-centered leadership style and to bring the strategy and the culture together as you lead your people and lead your organization. It's the best path forward in this new really challenging work era, that we can serve our clients, serve our staff that way.
I love that. And thank you for being a courageous leader. So not only are you talking about how do we model courageous leadership, but you're modeling it in your firm in what you're doing with clients. And so I'm just grateful for you and the courage work and the leadership that you're doing, because it can be difficult,
Yeah.
right? It's not always comfortable. It usually
Yeah.
isn't comfortable
That's
for
right.
most of us to be courageous.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So it's always helpful to just remind yourself that, other people are out there trying to do the same good work as you, and just encourage one another to keep going. And we're going to make a lasting impact for this generation and for the next generation that can really be courageous and human centered in our work.
I love it.
Yeah.
And we were talking before and you mentioned it, but I'm like, I think we gotta have a courage conference.
Yes.
We gotta have you come to the US and speak in a courage conference. So yes, anyone listening, if you want to host this courage conference or partner with us, I honestly think courage is one of the biggest missing components in leadership today,
Mhm.
in culture today, in
Yeah.
conversations today. And if we had more courageous, what I call change agents, right?
Yeah.
Change agents and leaders.
Yeah.
I mean, just wow, our
Mhm.
organizations, our communities, our households, right? This is something,
Yeah.
courage is something that goes across, right? It's not just work or not just home. So
For
yeah,
sure.
we'd love to just know your thoughts on, tell those people out here, we'll give them a little extra, but why did you decide to name your firm Hello Courage?
Yes, yes, certainly, certainly. Yeah, the Hello Courage. It's really, I think it's a dream for the future that
Mhm.
work can be, and work and life. My arena that I, have the most expertise in is work and, cultures and supporting executives. And so I really think that human centered leadership is the way of the future. The new generation wants to be involved in their work. They want to be heard, they want to be valued and a sense of belonging, and they want to do great work. They want to contribute their talents, make the world a better place. And so I just think that we can lead in that way, but it's really tough. We haven't seen it done much before. It often, it's not making everyone happy. It's not being soft. It's not any of those things. We still have to make hard decisions. I call courageous leadership combining accountability and humanity. So
Mm.
my little formula, courageous leadership equals accountability plus humanity. And I think that that's the new era of work. Everyone wants to contribute, they want to deliver, and be given the resources and the tools and the training to do so. And that's the humanity side, is really caring about the people that you work with as people, not
Yes.
just as the outputs that they produce. And so that's the whole philosophy behind the Hello Courage. And the hello is basically, saying hi to your courage deep within you every moment and every day, because you have to dig deep and say, like, okay, I can do this. I'm going to, make the right decision even when it's hard, and I'm going to, do the best I can for my employees and for my customers and for the impact that we're making in the world. So that's the Hello Courage component of my consulting and facilitation firm. And we're really just helping our leaders to be courageous, to make those tough decisions, and to be really clear with their employees, and to get their clarity from the employees. And so bringing in that courage and that kindness and that really just big impact through, I do consulting and facilitation, and then the leaders lead their organizations. And so I think it's a good reminder to have courage as part of our daily life. And I've followed you for a long time and really appreciate all of your courage teaching and speaking, because I think, yeah, the world can use more courage.
Oh, thank you. That was just so beautiful. And so I'm going to let us take away that formula: courageous leadership equals accountability plus humanity. something to definitely think about. I'm going to be sharing that with our Courage Candy group next week, because I think that's something great to reflect on, is accountability and humanity. And something I believe is courage isn't just a virtue, right? It's a catalyst for transformation. And so how can we use courage to catalyze and transform our workplaces and communities? Trina, you are doing this amazing work in Western Canada. I am so grateful that we were able to just share some of the amazing work you're doing. And if you can tell us, where can people find you who are listening or watching?
Yeah, certainly. So hello-courage.com, where you can check out website, and then really active on LinkedIn and Facebook under Trina McCarroll. And yeah, love getting in touch with really collaborative, human-centered leaders who might need a hand with, they have a lot on their plate. Sometimes they just need an extra hand to do these big projects. So love to get in touch with really collaborative, human-centered leaders and making a big impact.
Thank you. We will link in the show notes just Trina's information, so you can have those direct links as well. And don't hesitate to reach out if you have any questions. We want to celebrate Trina and her work. So when you're watching or listening to this later, because lots of people come back and do it, please put some encouragement in the chat so we can cheer her on and the work that she's doing. Thank you all for being here for episode 58, Integrating Strategy and Culture. We will see you again soon. And if you don't take anything from this, right, take to be courageous and do the things that you personally need to do to be a courageous leader. So thank you, Trina, for being here. Really appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Bye, everyone.